Good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of City Hall Live. I am Joe Abeta, and we have a great show today. We're going to get right into it. We have author Micheal Scofield, who wrote a book called Dedicated Lives, and it's on Good Samaritans in the city of Santa Fe. Micheal, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Joe.
I appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure.
So what inspired you to write this book?
A little over 2 years ago, I got very discouraged about all the bad news that I was reading in the world, and I've met people who have dedicated their lives to helping others, and I thought, you know what, I bet there are a lot of them here in Santa Fe. I went to my publisher, Sunstone Press, proposed the idea, and he said, go for it. So in the next 2 years, I conducted interviews in depth with 13 Good Samaritans here, like Russell Baker of the Dance Barns, Tony McCarty, Kitchen Angels, Deborah Tang at St. Elizabeth's Shelter. And these are not your usual interviews. These interviews took 10 hours with each person over a period of 5 meetings. So we get to know these people in depth.
Okay. And so I know that this isn't your first book. I know this is your 8th book, you said?
That's right.
And you go from all sorts, because you're also a poet. You have a book on poetry, right?
3.
Yeah, you have 3 books on poetry. You also write novels that all take place here in Santa Fe, and then now you're writing. It's kind of it's a fiction on dedicated lives, right? On nonfiction, right? Nonfiction on dedicated lives. Yeah. Was there a trend of Samaritans here that you found that kind of was a surprise to you, that, hey, I didn't realize, but all these are kind of interconnected into together in some way?
Great question. Yes, indeed. Most of the people I interviewed had horrific upbringings.
Yeah.
Lots of sadness in their upbringings, lots of struggle, violence, alcoholism, and these people have done the impossible in getting themselves educated, pretty much, and trying to become what their ancestors weren't, something like that.
Just to change the trend of their family.
Change the trend.
Gotcha. So you wrote this. I want to put this up. If we can get a close-up, guys, of this, I'll hold this up for a little bit. This is Dedicated Lives, talks with those helping others, and I'll put that right up there. You can check that out. Available at Collected Works.
Yes.
Where else?
Oh, it's online, but I'm preferring people buy it at Collected Works. That's where the launch is going to be.
Okay.
Mayor Javier Gonzalez is going to act as Master of Ceremonies at Collected Works on Sunday, September 25th at 3 o'clock.
At 3 o'clock at Collected Works, downtown. Another thing is, are you going to be doing any readings that day too as well? Are you going to be kind of reading excerpts of the book, or?
No, the mayor is going to interview many of the interviewees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about 9 of them are going to be in town, and they're all going to sit down front. I'm writing out name badges for them, and Javier is going to ask them questions about the process.
Are you going to be signing books?
Yes, I'm going to be signing books.
Okay, all right, great. Also pictures too, I'm sure. If you request, I'm sure Micheal will, right? You'll be able to take pictures if they want to prove that they met you and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're going to have a photographer there.
That's
great.
Either
my publisher or maybe Matt Ross.
Yeah.
We'll find somebody to get photographs.
That's great. So, because I know that we had talked a little bit before the show, you also had a stint in Silicon Valley, which was, that you had retired from. And then you went and you got your master's, right, in creative writing, correct?
Correct. Back at Vermont College of the Arts.
Was that kind of is that when you started to kind of have the writing bug after going to that, or have you always had the writing bug to write fiction and to write poems and stuff like that? Where'd that passion come from?
To tell you the truth, Joe, I'm like one of the interviewees. I knew a writer when I was very young, but because of family situations, I had no confidence in myself.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to take over my dad's business, and he was a rageaholic. I did not want to do that.
Yeah.
And so I've spent maybe 10 or 15 years wondering how to get into the professional writing business.
Yeah.
Meantime, I was selling advertising space for Sunset Magazine in Menlo Park. And eventually, Time Warner bought us out, and I got let go, and that's when I started the technological and marketing writing business among companies like Hewlett-Packard, IBM, and Xerox, and a few other big ones. We had a very active, my wife and I, Noreen, we had a very active business for about, oh gosh, I'd say 8 years in Silicon Valley.
Okay, but you weren't doing any kind of fiction writing, any kind of writing that brought you joy, did you? I mean, I would think that marketing and technical writing would bring you a lot of joy.
Correct.
But you know what I'm saying, like you're creative, it made, you know, were you doing anything creative at that time?
I was getting up at 4:30, as I do now, and I was writing poetry. And the great surprise was that the more poetry I wrote, the more business we got in the technological field, because poetry demands active verbs and images and interesting way of putting things, and all that spilled over into our marketing documents.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow, so you it would help you out with what you were doing during your day job, if you will, right?
Correct.
Okay, so was it mostly poetry? Was there any short stories that you would write? Any things that would inspire you? I'm sure, I mean, being in Silicon Valley back in the 90s, I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of stuff going on where you're saying, hey, that would make a great short story.
Yeah.
Do you have any of that?
Not stories, but I was writing under a pseudonym, Micheal Scofield. I was writing for the ballet magazine, the symphony magazine, the opera magazine, little things to boost my self-confidence.
Yeah. When do you feel, as a writer, did you hit your groove where you did feel confident and you did feel, hey, I can do this. This is something where you're not really thinking about your ability, but just writing and enjoying writing and, you know, pounding at the keyboard?
Another great question. That happened after I graduated from Vermont College of the Fine Arts. That was a peak experience for me because there were about 200 of us, all dedicated to being as creative and as professional as possible as writers. And it was a very heady environment in a beautiful spot in Montpelier, Vermont.
And so then I can imagine, had you been to Santa Fe at all before, during those years of, you know, before you and your wife decided to move here? Did you visit here?
Yeah, in Silicon Valley, the rule of thumb used to be that if you get into Marcom, is what my wife and I were in, called marketing communications, you can stay active and productive for 7 years. And if you try to extend it past that, you better hire some people or you better hightail it to the desert because you're going to get sick.
Okay.
We got greedy, we stayed an extra year, and as I said before the interview, we both ended up in St. Vincent's Hospital.
Oh, wow. So you were visiting here on a vacation?
Yeah, we loved it here. We fell in love with Santa Fe the moment we got here.
Different pace of life, right?
Different pace of life, beautiful people like yourself.
Yeah.
Everybody I meet here, frankly, I just fall in love with you. This is my spiritual home.
So let me ask you something. I mean, because you've had a pretty full life, and you've written many books. What would be your advice to young folks that want to break into the biz?
Start small. Find newspapers. Find little poetry journals that are local. Say that you'll write for free. Just start writing, and that's what I'd say. That's what I'd say to do.
Just to start writing and to do it, right? I would think. I mean, I find it interesting that you know, it's always been in the back of your head as a muse saying, hey, this is what you got to do, this is what you got to do. And sometimes, you know, life takes you in different directions, but if you always, as long as you have that in the back of your head, eventually you'll be doing stuff that you love, and I think it's great. Okay, so let's just recap real quick. Dedicated Lives, tales, talks with those helping others. Micheal Scofield, that's this guy right here. He's going to be, there's a launch party. It's going to be a book signing at Collected Works on September 25th at 3 p.m. Mayor Javier Gonzalez is going to be there. He's going to be interviewing some of the people that Micheal wrote about in this book, so you can talk to them as well. And Micheal will also be signing books too. The book is available now at Collected Works.
Yes.
And it's great if you go down there, because what you're doing is you're supporting local businesses as well, so that's always good to do rather than buying it online. But hey, you know, what the heck. I have another question before I let you go. I wanted to ask you, how'd you get hooked up with your publisher? How'd that all, tell me that story. How did that go down?
Oh my gosh, I am so loyal to this publisher, Sunstone Press. It's the largest commercial publisher in New Mexico.
Okay.
Right here in our own backyard.
Yeah.
And a poet friend, James McGrath, was publishing with Sunstone, and I had been friendly with him, and he said, call Jim Smith and see if he's interested in your manuscript. I had a poetry manuscript. I also had my first novel called Acting Badly. And it took about 2 months before Jim could see me. His computer had crashed. He was going crazy with it. But we finally met and really hit it off, just like I seem to do with just about everybody here. And he not only gave me a contract for the poetry manuscript, but for the first novel too.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So then that's how that relationship began, and it's kind of continued since, right? I mean,
continued since. I even sell greeting cards for him. Sunstone has a whole line of greeting cards.
That's awesome.
6 accounts here.
That's great. That's great. Well, Micheal, thank you so much for coming on today and taking time. I know you're a busy guy, and we appreciate you coming on the show today. Tomorrow, we'll have Micheal on the radio show at 11 o'clock on 101.5, The Voice of Santa Fe, so you can listen to Micheal. We're going to have more time with him as well, too, so we'll get into the nitty-gritty, if you will, with Micheal. But Micheal, thanks again. And folks, also, you can check this out on YouTube as well. We'll have it on our city website, this interview. And we have all of our stuff there as well. Micheal, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep, thank you. And thank you, folks, for joining us today on City Hall Live. Have a safe weekend. Have a great weekend. Adios.